But hey, I want to talk first about this contradiction, fully present in my work and fully present in my life. How can you be fully present in both? Now, maybe this is a story of alignment and getting things in alignment, but I'd like to talk about the idea of balance really this morning. I think that there is something and there is a concept here that will kind of bring these together that if your things are in alignment, you can be fully present right before both of them. But there's no question, there are times in which our work is going to take us one direction and our life is going to take us in another. I've told people for a long time I make a living making friends, which is pretty awesome. And that only goes to a certain degree. Okay. Because there's plenty of things that I do for this work that isn't immediately making friends. But I'll talk about this myth of balance. Uh, so the word balance, we've been doing word studies. The word balance means two scales. That is simply what it means. Two pan scales. We think like way back when scales were first created, you had a pan on either side and it balanced in the middle. By the way, there's something called the lingula, and this was like a little indicator, the tongue, that when it was pointing straight up, we knew that those things were in balance. So not only do we need to be able to balance things against each other, I know somebody's thinking 6, 7. That's not what I'm doing. I promise you. This is scales today. Okay. But we've got to have some kind of indication that those things are perfectly in balance with each other. Um, the idea, so the weird thing is if we look at balance, balance describes a mechanism. It does not describe an action. And if ever it described an action, you're only going to be able to balance one thing. Because the way scales were used, you had something that was a standard, you had a weight that was set, it was known, and then you balanced the commodity on the other side until they equated. And so you knew how much of this grain or rice or whatever else it was, coin, you were measuring against the scale. Um, and so if you're going to balance one thing, I think of like spinning plates, I think is a really pretty good analogy. You can spin a plate and then it stays into like a firm balance. Then you can focus on the next plate. So maybe that's one way we can look at it. The problem with spinning plates is the same problem that we have in our life, though. Like there is inertia that only takes us so far. It's constantly, that inertia is constantly in decay. So it's going to require that we bring our attention back to it once again to spin it up. Um, the myth, though, is of work-life balance, and it just is never going to be. We know this from the one thing, Gary Keller goes into it quite a bit. The idea instead is that we would have counterbalance. Actually, that's quite the concept of a scale. A scale was used to counterbalance. A scale was used because you had something set and known, and then you added weight to the other side until it brought into balance. The only way you could use a scale was the use of counterbalance. Nobody did the balancing itself. So what's interesting is uh, the advancement of the scale today. I think the most common one that we might think of is the scale that we step on at the doctor's. Now, most everyone here has stepped on that where it's got like the big weight and the little weight, and you shift it around until it's perfectly. And you're really hoping they don't have to put that little weight quite as far as they did last time. But I don't know. As a kid, also, I was like, come on, push it further, further, further. I want to see it grow. Uh, I don't know I I feel like I missed the last time I would ever step on one of those scales because they're all digital now. So you know that like you don't know it's the last time until it's already the last time, and it's like you're so far beyond it. You're like, I remember a day. So we may not use it anymore, but the idea is this, and it works just the same. We stand on one place, we are the standard, and then we move these small weights in order to balance it out. It actually works exactly the same as these two did, but they did it so they could use adjustable weights. It used to be they would take a 1 pound weight and they would measure it against it. But then they'd have to replace that 1 pound weight. They did this instead so they could keep the standard and then adjust these things. Um, the As I think of this, I think about what we're measuring against and what we're moving is really the significance of our life against everything else. You spend more time in your life than you do doing anything else. And there is, I think, a fallacy that we fall into sometimes. And it's a point of disagreement I have with the one thing as well. I have a really hard time with the idea that we would have small interactions with our personal life and what matters most, and that somehow that could compensate for this giant chunk of work that we do. That somehow like we would get in touch. So Gary Keller talks about going long and going short. And he says this idea of counterbalance, by the way, when the statera is what it was called. That's like when you measure something and you have like a sliding scale on the other side, you would have a short side, and that's whatever you were measuring. And then you would have the long side, and that's where you adjusted the weight in order to balance it out. Like you could take a small weight and you push it really, really far out, it would lift a bigger weight. I don't think this is about going long and going short. I think this is a matter of impact in actions that we take. Like if our whole life matters, if we spend more time in our life than anything else, then that life matters no matter what we're doing. I think the idea is then, as we're moving things on the other end, I'm moving this because I feel like work is significant right now. I'm moving this because I feel like my family is significant. I'm moving this because I feel like my physical health is significant. I'm focusing on this thing and I'm moving it so I can bring everything else into balance. I'm my like this is the most significant thing. This is heavy, and I'm probably not going to change it. And actually, the only reason I put focus on this end is because I want to make this significant and I want to bring this into balance. We put our energy and focus on the other end. So the idea of going long and going short, as he says go long, go really deep and be willing to commit for long periods of time in what is uncomfortable and what is work and what creates um what would like pay dividends back towards you, and then make sure you've got these short intervals on a very frequent basis for personal life. I think it's a really cool idea. Truly, I mean, if we look at our day-to-day schedule, the idea of having like a handful of things that might only take me 2 hours that really fill me with personal energy so that I can go spend 8 to 12 hours on what is significant work that impacts a whole lot of other people and puts food on my family's plate. That's a pretty cool idea. But the problem is it ignores the fact that there was a long time I spent in this life before I chose real estate as a profession. And the longer I live in this life, the less time I'm going to spend as a proportion of my entire day on my profession. Like I'm going to spend these years to build a significant business that continues to drive itself, or have I can have somebody drive it for me, or I can spend less and less time moving it forward as I spend more time doing other things as well. So if instead I think of it this way, how can I move a weight that is going to impact all these different areas? There's three different areas that we place our counterweights. So again, like the significance of my life, that is defined already. This is why we start with big why. By the way, like what is important to us? What are we here to accomplish? The people that are in my life, they're there because there is something larger that is significant to me. And it probably connects us in some way. I'm a part of a community because we share something in common. We want to bring to the circle. We're sharing in something. I'm doing work because there is something significant I'm looking to create with my life on this earth, and that's going to help me do it. Whether that's going to fund my purpose, or if my purpose is very much in alignment with this way that some other people make money and I get to do that too, that's pretty cool. But there's three areas. Our personal life is one area that we put a counterweight. This is health. This is our energy. This is our spiritual life. This is our emotional health. And I think it's important to understand anytime we're putting a counterweight, the only way that we're going to do that is be able to draw attention during time. Like if we're not spending time on these things that are most important, we're not really moving anything. The further out we push it on that arm is the more time that we're spending. The lives around us, our spouses, our children, the family, the deep personal relationships, the community, the connections, the stories that we get to be a part of, the stories that we tell with people. One of the greatest things about this business is I get to be a story collector. Not only do I get to be a part of people's stories, but I get to hear them and then go and share them with other people as well. It makes my stories way more interesting when I get to tell stories about y'all. I do it in good ways, I promise. There are some cautionary tales, but I love the stories that I collect. And then the third, how we fund our life. That's a counterweight. The purpose of business is to fund the perfect life. Well, if that's the case, then I should be willing to invest a lot of time and effort in something to create something significant elsewhere. If my time spent at work allows me to do more in my personal life, if I really believe that's true, then let me put my very best work here so I don't have to put a lot of work here. If I place the counterweight at the right place, if I'm willing to take it to an extreme in certain moments, I can take a small weight and push it way out on that arm. as opposed to finding something that where I got to put a ton of energy. There's a time and a place for everything. So this past week, I had no idea what the timing was going to be. I actually decided last minute. I drove out to Florida. I had something to pick up in Tampa, visit my grandmother in Punta Gorda, pick up some of my grandfather's things. I was going to see the family in the villages and then drive right back. My plan was 40 hours in 3 days, and that's a heavy drive. That's a lot of time in a short amount of time. Um, but it's what made sense because the previous week was breakthrough, and I knew that for my work life, for what funds my mission, which by the way, if it was all about money, I'd probably be selling real estate. There's a whole lot more money in selling homes than in managing brokerages. There's no doubt about that. The idea of scale is really nice. I get to have a whole bunch of other people sell. Anyhow, I digress. I had no idea the significance of timing, but talk about right place, right time. As I drove out on Saturday, I'm calling my grandmother. I would plan on being there around 2 or 4 o'clock. There were some delays. I ended up going to see my family. There were some more delays. And she had this heaviness about her. And I felt like this guilt because I felt like maybe she was disappointed that I wasn't there earlier in the day. It was going to be a short amount of time, and I was just going to come in, pick stuff up, and leave right away. It wasn't until I got in late in that evening that I had any idea that that was the first time that she had attended a grief group for the passing of my grandfather. She had a hard time even speaking the word widow in the women that she was meeting with because it's such a heavy concept for her, and it's not an identity that she's taken on for herself. It's been some time. This group has met many times. She just so happened to have met with them on the very same day that I came in and was able to sit with her. Um, she doesn't have people she sits with every day. I had no idea the importance and significance that that would have in her life, and ultimately in my life, the fact that I sat with her that evening and had a chance to spend the day with her the following day as well. There are, look, a lot of days that I could have showed up. That day tended to have a really significant impact. And it was a small thing that lifted a very large weight, very, very large weight. So a lot of times it's about timing more than anything, but I'm going to ask you to look for ways that you can align. So again, with my work also fills my bucket in personal relationships. I know, and I love so many of you. I love spending time around you. So as I show up and I do significant work, so am I also filling my lives around us bucket as well. I want to leave you with a quote in the journal prompt. You've heard from the great philosophers, wherever you go, there you are. I also think that's a song quote. Wherever you go, there you are. Jim Rohn says this, and I think the two relate. So if wherever you go, there you are, Jim Rohn says, wherever you are, be there. If you're there already, be there. Show up. You're there already. Be there, fully present. Find the significance in it. Don't let it waste. Your journal prompt today, think about your energy levels. What is one counterbalancing activity? Because all you can do is counterbalance. What's one balancing activity like a hobby, exercise, quiet time that you can do this week to recharge? That's a wrap.